Hello, Wendy from Light Always Wins. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and you are my special guest because you were the first from the light workers community to kind of see me and invite me in to speak up on your podcast and show Light Always Wins. And that's when I first met you. It was a podcast where I used to invite people to share about their journey, and now it has turned into a entirely different project, a mystery school, and we will talk about that. But first I wanted you to share more about how you began your podcast and what led to that activity.
Yeah. First of all, I just have to say I love that like I was one of the first people to reach out to you. That just like warms my heart so much cuz I saw your posts and I thought they were awesome. So that's really cool. And I started the podcast because I had a really intense Kundalini awakening, and there was nobody in my life who could explain what I had just gone through. And so being the person that I am, I really don't stop until I get answers. And so I was like, well, why don't I start a podcast where I interview people about their awakening journeys, and I'll put the pieces together, as to what happened to me. And also it was a way just to connect with more people. And what's so funny is that at the beginning I just assumed that anybody who had awakened had been through the same kind of experience I had. I didn't realize that there were like some people take a long, slower, gradual journey, and then others it happens like it did to me, where it feels like the ocean just got dumped on your head. So it was funny. It kept me like, I would talk to people and I would be like, oh, okay. Well, their experience is pretty different. And that was a really valuable lesson for me to learn, because I think I was still sort of like stuck in that sort of smaller mind, or like the ego, where you think that everybody else experiences things the way you do. So that was quite an eye opener to start hearing about people's different experiences.
Yeah. um I love that you brought that up, like how different those experiences are. And sometimes, uh, like on the other side, it can stop people from sharing their experience because they see the people who are maybe coming out and talking about these things, they are not having the same experiences, so sometimes that leads to invalidating our own experience. And that is something that led me to start sharing my magic, which under which project I'm interviewing you knew, basically to encourage more light workers who are having this experience to come and share their magic, because every different experience, all this like fits into a larger puzzle, and it would be incredible to get more of those pieces to work with. And yeah, like you said, you wanted answers, you wanted to know what's going on, and that's why you started talking to people. I think that's an incredible approach, and it reminded me of your being a celestial or cosmic investigator personality that you have. Like you have this esoteric magnifying glass you keep go looking into. And have you been like that, like since your childhood, like interested in these kind of things?
it wasn't it wasn't always esoteric, but as I look back through my life, anything I was interested in, I just dive super deep into it. So, it's like, I would say my first interest was like piano, and I took piano lessons for like 10 years, and became like a classical pianist. And then it was like, oh, now I'm going to learn guitar, like anything I discover that I love, I just dive full in. And, that went to farming. And then wow, if I really wanted something to dive into, I think spirituality is like that'll keep me busy the rest of my life.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't, oh my God. Yeah. Yeah, you can't graduate on this. There's always this next level to go. And it's fun also to discover all these things about yourself.
Mhm.
And yeah, like you said, like about farming, and your musical journey has been also like super cool. And I know you that you were in a punk band, and now you are and your Instagram says farmer, mystic, alchemist. So can you tell us a bit more about that transformation that happened? Was that before you started on this journey, or that played a role in you wanted to settle down, be closer to a land or something?
The farming was before, and I will say that I've been farming for about 9 years, and I just like awakened a little over 2 years ago, I believe. Just like the crazy awakening. But I feel like farming is what really connected me to spirit, connecting with nature, because there's just these cycles that you observe when you're out in nature that completely tap you into those higher realms if you um, really are present with it and feel into it. And so I think, I remember like at my old house in North Carolina, I had some like Jehovah's Witnesses come to my door one day, and because they were like, "Don't you want to know like what God you can thank for that sunset?" And I was like, God is I think God is everything. I think God is nature. Like and this was before I'd really consciously started on my journey, but I had always had a deep inner understanding of things. It just wasn't something that I consciously thought about a lot. So, the other thing with farming is that it teaches you responsibility, because if you don't do the work, your plants die, your animals die. I mean, you have to take care of things, right? So, with that, I also have been learning the lesson, I'm still learning it, of finding a work life balance and taking care of everything and taking care of yourself at the same time.
Yeah,
I was like working myself to the grindstone, and like I don't know if that's actually an expression, but I was just
it
working
is
so
now.
okay. I was just working so hard, and I ended up going through adrenal fatigue because I just burn out my adrenal glands, and so that brought me into yoga. And when I started doing yoga, a whole other kind of side opened up, and so many more questions came. So I think like that's something that I really like to incorporate, and I'm getting better at it. It took me a while after I awakened to kind of come back to earth and realize that how much it's all connected, because there was so much to explore like out there,
Yeah,
um, and then I feel like more recently I'm really like coming back to my body and really seeing all of the connections when I'm outside. And I just feel like if you get out in nature, that's like that's our representation of the spirit realm on this plane.
wow.
You know what I mean? Like it's
Yes.
the closest thing we have, you know?
Absolutely. And I'm writing that down because it's so true and it resonates so much. Like, nature is the physical representation or manifestation of the spirit realm and stuff. And yeah, the beauty of it, the intricacies and the variety. There is so much. Like, you take a microscope and you zoom in or you zoom out, and you will find all these different tiny and gigantic stuff going on, and just having their own rhythm, and also connecting the to the whole macrocosm itself. Like, it's beautiful, and this is something to really think about, and a good approach to the spirit realm. uh, Another thing that stood out to me when you were talking is that having that deep understanding that God was more than some names or some characters with some attributes, and it was a more uh, higher perspective of presence and interconnection and intelligence. And I think that is something sort of common with people who are waking up right now, old souls who are coming to forefront to help the shift happen. And I'm just putting it out there for people who are watching this and they feel that this is something that they resonate with as well, because for me as a kid, I could also see how some concepts, especially religious and stuff, were uh, diminished and limited, versus to what I knew within was the truth of this reality. So yeah,
Mm.
just wanted to bring that out for the viewers and stuff. And you mentioned like the spirit realm, and I'm aware that you have very unique and inspiring experience with spirit communication, given how you receive messages from your family through golf balls, and you also work with certain geometry like hexagon and stuff. So you can pick a favorite out of and talk about it, about your experience in that.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because when you started to say that I have unique experiences, I'm like, oh, what is she gonna say? And what's funny is that it's almost like sometimes we get used to these really extraordinary things happening where we don't even like think about it anymore, but it really is amazing. So essentially, like, it's just noticing signs. And so for example, the golf balls, I'll talk about that. So my dad passed away about 9 years ago, and he was a professional golfer, and that's what he loved to do. And I noticed that I would find golf balls on my farm whenever I would be like something big would be happening in my life, or maybe I'd really be contemplating something. For example, we sold our house in North Carolina, and we thought we had something lined up in New Hampshire, and it didn't work out. So I was walking through the woods, and my husband and I were just like looking for mushrooms, and I'm just like, my mind's going wild. Like, what are we doing next? I guess we're gonna go live with Matt's parents, and it's just like so much anxiety, right? And I'm in the middle of the woods, and I look up on this bluff, and I thought I saw a mushroom, and I'm like, is that a mushroom? And I go up there, and it's a freaking golf ball. And I picked it up, and I just knew he was telling me, don't worry, and it's like every time I found a golf ball, I knew that it had a message, like, or I would just get the message that came with it. And it wasn't always a situation like that, but another time, like my I lost my mom, and I was like going through a really really hard time, and I'm walking down the street. I felt like a zombie. I'm walking down the street, just like looking at the sidewalk, and out of the corner of my eye, I see this golf bag. And the front, I don't like, there's a bench and a golf bag, and like no one around. And the front pocket was open, and it was just full of golf balls. And I was like, oh my God, he's sending me so much love.
Yeah.
So it's funny because I think all we have to do is just trust, and more signs come our way, and I think sometimes we create these things that happen too. Like, if you think about how we're connected to everything, you realize we're like co-creating this experience we're having. And so yeah, I definitely get a lot of signs and synchronicities, and the more that I trust them and the more that I investigate them, the more they happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I like, thank you for like putting it out there so beautifully. Like, it's a process. It doesn't happen in the beginning, and you not always trust it. But if you keep investigating them and have faith, trust those messages as they're coming, is it gets better. And so many of us, because we feel different, we have been having this different perspective on the world, we feel very alone and isolated many of the times, up till a point, at least in on this journey. But to get those messages and that love that your higher self and your spirit team and your ancestors are trying to send you is makes a lot of difference. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, absolutely.
And there's a book I have called Animal Speak by Ted Andrews, and it's amazing. It's a book about what different animals mean, like what their messages are and what they represent. And it comes from a very shamanic perspective, and I highly recommend that book if you're interested in like following the signs more, because it's like, say a hummingbird comes right up to you, you can go look up, okay, what does a hummingbird mean? You
Mm,
may even intuitively know, but if you're like me and you like to nerd out, you can go look it up in the book and go, oh my gosh, like this. A lot of times it will directly apply to something that you were thinking or something that you're going through.
yeah, this is absolutely talks about how you say that we create these experiences, like co-create with all the animal medicines, the spirit team, and you can sometimes think about it, right, like your higher self confirming your beliefs and giving you the aid and the guidance that you need at this moment to confirm that you're on the right path or you need to make some change and stuff like that. Absolutely. And
Mhm.
your curiosity and ability to investigate through symbols and all that stuff also got you into astrology and something called the Sabian Symbols, which is very interesting, something I never had heard before. So can you tell us little bit about that and how you got into it?
Yeah. So the astrology thing's really wild because leading up to my big Kundalini awakening, I was experiencing this very, very rapid expansion of consciousness or my brain. Like I suddenly just became so thirsty for knowledge. And there was this I have a friend, a really dear friend who's an astrologer, and she had put out a class, like a basic astrology class in the summer. And I was just super busy farming, so I didn't have time to take it. And this rapid expansion was happening like in the fall. And so I was like, hey, can I, like, you have replays of your class, right? Can I take it? And she was like, totally. And she sent it to me, and it was like, I think the class was like broken up to be like a 6-week class. And I just like devoured it in a week. And I was, I was like, oh my gosh, like this makes so much sense. And she was like, you seem like you're just remembering this. And I was like, it feels like I'm just remembering it. Like it feels like I already know it.
Yeah,
And so there definitely I must have had this knowledge in another life. Either
yeah,
that or I was just already tapping into the matrix, as I like to call it, like the divine matrix, which
yeah,
sets up all of these like archetypes that sort of give us the scenarios we live out in this physical experience.
right.
And or maybe even in the spirit realms, because a lot of those mythologies are based on gods and
Yeah,
things. But anyway, later I had heard about the Sabian symbols, and I asked Stevie about it. And she sent me this website, jamesburgess.com. And I really vibed with this guy. He's like a philosopher, and he goes really deep into explaining the symbols. And when I got to the website, I just immediately started reading my birth chart and reading the symbols of it in a certain order. And I was like, okay, so you have a poem and a story. And this was just completely intuitive. Like I didn't follow any directions or anything. It was like I just knew what to do. And when I read through my symbols, it resonated so much that I was like, I'm going to make these readings. And I even did the symbols, I look at them a little bit differently than the way that they've set it up to be done. And I struggled with that for a little bit. I kept going back and forth, like, okay, should I do it their way? But then when I would do it their way, it wouldn't resonate with me as much. And I just went within and listened to my internal guidance and asked the question, like, is it okay for me to just do this my way? And what I heard was everything, all of these spiritual sciences are up for interpretation. And so it's how you interpret it. And there is room for interpretation and everything. And it just said, just listen to your intuition. So I just went with it that way. And so far, it seems like they've resonated a lot with people.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, and you sometimes do your lives where you come up with the scenarios that you do the Sabian symbols for and explain that and stuff. And you did that one for the Neptune energies recently, I think. Yeah, that those are really, really cool. And what I love about what you just said and everything is the reason I'm doing these interviews is for other people to watch this and understand what it looks like for a person who breaks out of the old matrix and steps up to their truth. And you talk about going within and feeling into it and making your own interpretation and being confident with it. As long as it resonates with you, it's gonna resonate with the people that they're meant to be. And these are wonderful messages, exactly what I wanted to share with the audience through this process. About it looks confusing, but the answer is within, and you can tap into it and trust yourself and
Mhm.
see where your resonance is taking you. Love it, love it, love it.
Yes. And I think like there's when you're new to these things too, I think that it can be valuable to get confirmation from other people. Like just find your soul friends and um ask for those confirming signs too, because there's definitely like some discernment we have to learn in the beginning too, right? Because like I think that's just a part of the whole initiation, if you will, is like um learning how to fine tune that ability of trusting yourself and going within. And one thing I'll say about that I feel is a huge piece of it is the shadow work. There's a process to being able to trust your intuition. And I think for a while it's helpful to get like confirmation and ask for signs and have friends you can talk to and everything. And I was just saying like the big piece to the puzzle, I think, also is the shadow work,
Yeah.
which just means looking at the parts of yourself that maybe you suppress or maybe you're ashamed of, or just like past wounds you haven't really looked at to heal. I think that the more we heal, the clearer of a channel we can be, because when we have these little wounds, these little things hanging on, they'll often color what comes through us. And we're each like a filter. And so the clearer you can get that filter, like the more accurate your information will be, or the more you can also trust what's coming through.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it is that's why also very important if you are having difficulty to channel these messages and you can feel your resistance acting up and shadows coming out in the beginning. It's also part of the process to not feel less or diminished because you see others doing so much easily these things, because everybody starts there peeling all those internal layers till you can let the light shine through you. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. And it's true. It's like everybody there this whole process like is not just like this rip a band-aid off kind of thing. It's many layers, you know, and we all kind of just can support each other through the times where we're digging into another layer, right? And it's like totally normal. And it's just a part of diving deeper into who you truly are, right?
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, and it's okay to have support for that, and it's available if you open yourself up to that. And honestly, when I started, I didn't even imagine the support was possible, because again, like you, I thought I was going through something absolutely, unique, and I don't know if I will fit in with a group of people. But then I started connecting to my soul people and soul family, and it really made a lot of difference in a better way. um, so
Mm.
now the light always wins, and its short form is law, and I just love that wordplay there. And it started from being a podcast where you were like just helping people and understanding this journey for yourself. And now it's a full-blown mystery school and you are teaching people. So how is that going? What programs are you working on? Tell me about it.
It's good. It's it's been an interesting process because first I had to overcome some major fears. I had a lot of subconscious fears coming up that I would be like, that I was gonna like die for sharing this information. And I think that it came from past lives
Right.
where I had spoken my truth in the past and been persecuted or punished for it. You know, I haven't specifically seen those lives really. I've heard about them like in Akashic readings I've had, but like it that resonates with me. And I couldn't really explain why I would have such an irrational fear in any other way. So just acknowledging that and reminding myself that I was safe to share this information got me through all. And often, I think a lot of times when we are growing and we're taking the next step and we're up leveling, there's like a part of us that almost tries to block us. Like it's like your ego is like, no, I don't want to change. I don't want to change. Like, no, you can't leave me behind, you know?
Yeah.
And you kind of have to be like, no, I'm safe. I'm okay. I can do this, you know? So I had to get through that. And it's been super fun. Like I essentially just teach what I'm guided to teach. It all kind of just comes through at different times. So what's really cool about it is that I feel like it's a mix. What I teach is a mixture of classic esoteric knowledge mixed with my own creative spin, you know, and I really enjoy like channeling things, researching things, and then putting it into a new form for like
Yeah.
that's applicable to us now, you know. And I gotta admit, like I'm definitely like old soul energy. I really do like to dive into other times of the past, and I really honor like the antiquity of things.
Right.
But I do my best to bring it into form for people now, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because many of this information that is surfacing right now was not there in the past couple of centuries, and whatever most of the knowledge that we are resonating with, tapping into, and repurposing for this era is from really ancient times. And those civilizations, those era really fascinates us, and it's always a like it pulls our souls, our memories to dwell in that, and it takes effort to bring all that knowledge and make it relevant for people who are going through this today. And that's kind of the task. That's why I started sharing my magic, to encourage more people to talk about this, because there's a saying called nothing is new under the sun. So any esoteric knowledge, nobody is going to invent a new esoteric knowledge. They can just give their own creative spin. And this is important because not everybody will resonate with everyone's creative spin.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
that's why the light workers community, people who resonate with this level and these terms, they're just required to creatively express over and over again the same concept, the same love, the same gratitude and kindness, so that it can get imprinted in the entire collective.
I agree with you, and that's so true. I can't tell you how many times I've channeled essentially the same thing in different ways so many times.
Yeah.
And it's always coming back to the same basic principles, but it's just like, how many ways can we express it so that it will stick? You know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's why many of us, when I went into this journey and was trying to figure out how to, step up and be on a, public platform where I'm, sharing a message. That's what they say. Like, pick one message and keep sharing it. You don't have to do a lot of things, and if you can and if you want to, that's amazing, and the message keeps evolving too. But anybody who has that feeling that they have something to share, and it could be unformed, it could be fuzzy, but it's okay to start with it, and you will be amazed how people randomly across the globe will just resonate with that and just connect with you, and then it's a whole other journey happening from there.
Mhm. Man, I got some like visuals while you were talking about that, and I saw like sort of like, it's almost like magnets. I'm trying to think of a good way to describe it. Or like a vortex. Like, you know how water vortexes and it starts really wide and it eventually gets more narrow? It's sort of like we start kind of on the outside of this vortex, right? As we collect information. And as we grow and as we keep deconditioning, it's like we get closer and closer to the center. And so as we're doing that, like even if you start sharing when you begin your journey, you're gonna collect friends and relationships and people who can understand where you're at because they're where you're at, right? And then like as you keep evolving, it's like you keep kind of influencing different people as you make your way towards like that center, like the center of the Tootsie Pop or whatever. It's like we kind of, just as your vibration changes, you're always kind of attracting different people, and every step matters. Every step counts because we're all in different places, right?
Yes.
So like sometimes, certain people won't resonate with you. Like for me, Rudolf Steiner is a philosopher and spiritual teacher, the founder of anthroposophy. He's somebody that I recently really dove into. And I would say 2 years ago, I just couldn't even understand his work.
Mm.
So it's really interesting, just as we evolve, we just kind of we understand things differently. So the point of all of that is to say, don't I don't want, like, I don't think people need to be perfect right before they start sharing whatever they have to share.
Yeah.
It's like and that's where like compassion comes in too, like compassion for yourself. I mean, starting, I went back and listened to like some of the first episodes. I probably like cringe a little bit at things I would say, but I just give myself compassion that I was where I was. I'm at where I'm at, and I'm just here growing and learning and experiencing. And that's the human experience, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny that we have been conditioned to be so harsh on ourselves, but just being
Yeah.
grateful that because on so time and space you were there, you are here today, and that step was important and
Mm-hmm.
get you here. Yes, it's important to remember that, and we can be like so harsh towards ourselves, but I think we're learning to be more compassionate to ourselves and others, and how that opens up portals within ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's been a huge one for me because I have a lot of Capricorn energy and Capricorn is very critical. So I am constantly working on that and it's been quite the journey, you know? And it's funny too, like a lot of times I would say to myself, why can't I have more compassion for other people? And I realized it was a direct reflection of the compassion that I wasn't giving myself. So it really, everything is like an inside out kind of job. And if you notice, like, if you're aware of some things that you're like, why do I do that? You know, it's like, well, look at how you treat yourself, and that's how you treat others.
Yeah. Wow. I just felt like letting that sink in, because I'm feeling like picking up that this is something that so many of us, deal with. Many of the people who are evolving into light workers were people who felt different, had to look out for themselves, and kind of only could trust and depend upon themselves. And that also made us hyper vigilant and super critical of ourselves, like not being able to forgive and accept our mistakes and stuff. Or at least that has been one of the mindset and personality experience that I had, at least with myself. And yeah, that really hit home with me, and so I wanted to sit it with it for a moment. So I wanted to ask you, like, if you had some particular advice or message for people who are still hesitating to come out and share their magic. But I think you have already shared a lot around that, but if you want to add another message for people who are kind of struggling and hesitating so far.
Let me think. Coming out and sharing your magic. Whew. Man, we have shared a lot. I feel like that is helpful. And what keeps coming up for me lately is just practicing self-love. And that comes back to that self-compassion. And can you just love yourself no matter where you're at? You know, like, can you be the observer and really just like almost get in touch with that inner child and see yourself as a child and see yourself, going through the steps and just loving when you say something weird or silly or like, oh God, I can't believe I said, just like, can we take things a little more lightly and really just see ourselves, just study ourselves, like from this observer perspective, and not judge it so harshly, and just kind of like laugh things off, notice things, take note of whatever you're like, oh, that's interesting, and that gives you like the next piece to kind of work out or observe. And I feel like if you can sort of take that perspective, uh, that can help you step out a little more. And again, I'll just say, like, I think it's a process, and that um, it's one of the best ways of like self-study. It has been for me, at least. And you'll be surprised too how much comes through you before you even realize that you are so divine. That we each have like just this divine energy channeling through us. You really start to realize when you take that observer perspective. So um sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit for that either.
Yes, yes. So being loving and curious to yourself, like, give you so many answers. It's seriously, man, like at the beginning of my journey, something so simple as looking at myself in the mirror and facing all the negative things I was saying about myself in the head, and really understanding where they came from, and practicing that, looking at myself at the mirror. Still, I could smile at myself every time I can see my reflection. And that took me a lot to go there. But it was one of the examples of how healing can occur. And yeah, it's about really looking at yourself and loving yourself. So thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that as well. And if people were to get a Sabian symbol reading from you or join your mystery school, where can they find your links and stuff?
I would say Instagram's the best spot. Instagram, I'm light.always wins on Instagram, and all my links are there. And if you want to go specifically to the Patreon, it's patreon.com/light always wins. And you can find my podcast on all the podcast platforms.
Yay, thank you. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like Wendy's energy to me is like she is super intelligent, and she has this sweet energy that is very inviting and is kind of playful. So you want to go in an adventure with her and discover things. But I also will not ever mess with you. You know, you have I'm sure you have like a very dagger kind of a side too, which is important, since we are doing work, even speaking energetically, that sometimes we need to be that warrior and
Yeah.
have those boundaries, like you are not going to fuck with me around this and stuff. But yeah.
Thank you so much for seeing me. Like that, all of that is so true. And I had a family member who told me kind of the same thing. She was like, "You have such a soft, like marshmallowy inside, and I would not mess with you." I was like, "All right, I'm like a s'mores, like I got that little like crunchiness and the softness." And it's funny what you said about going on an adventure, because one of my Sabian symbols, which I believe is like the part of my chart that really brings people together, it's my Jupiter in Aquarius. And the Sabian symbol is rolling out a rug for children to play. And when I read that, I imagined it as a magic carpet. So, like, come on this magic carpet ride with me.
uh, Absolutely love that magic carpet ride with Wendy. I think that's what I'm going to call this episode. Thank you so much for being here. I'm done with all my questions that I wanted to ask you today. Definitely would love to have you again. And if you have some closing thoughts for me or for the audience, yes, I would love to hear that.
Ooh, man, my closing thoughts would just be go outside. Go outside and just just look around. Um, if you're not in a place that's like super, immersed in nature, go find a tree and pick a leaf and stare at it. Like that's like I just think that's what really brings us back to our truth is nature.
Love that closing thought. Thank you so much, Wendy, for being here again.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun talking with you, and I just love how it flowed, and I'm so glad I met you.
Yeah, same here. Same here, absolutely. And you were, like I mentioned in the beginning, one of the few people that I connected, that I resonated with and could feel as part of my soul's family. And we are just getting started. Like you said, it's been a couple of years or so since we woke up and really embraced this journey, even more recent than that. So we are going places, and I can't wait to see what happens. Okay.
Yeah, me either.
Bye bye. Happy ascension.
Bye.